Welcome back to my dimension of the weird. I'm your host, Dennis Morrison. The enigma that is the UFO has had a long and fascinating history here in the United States, well, throughout the world. In 1897, a UFO flight began in California and spread out from there across our nation. And one of the most interesting encounters occurred in Kansas and was detailed in the Farmer's Advocate of Yates-centered Kansas on April 23, 1897. Following is that fascinating account. And I quote, "Airship takes cow, the thrilling experience of a Woodson stockman. Honorable Alexander Hamilton of Vernon came to town last Wednesday, April 21st, and created quite an excitement by announcing that he had been having some experience with a much-talked-about airship. Now, Mr. Hamilton is an old settler, was a member of the legislature in the early days, and is known all over Woodson, Allen, Coffee, and Anderson counties." This was told to a representative of the Advocate. Mr. Hamilton said, "Last Monday night, about 10:30, we were awakened by a noise among the cattle, and I arose thinking perhaps my bulldog was performing some pranks. But upon going to the door, I saw, to my utter amazement, an airship slowly descending over my cow lot about 40 rods from the house. Calling Gid Heslop, my tenant, and my son Wall, we seized some axes and ran to the corral. Meanwhile, the ship had been gently ascending until it was not more than 30 feet above the ground, and we came up to within 50 yards of it. It consisted of a great cigar-shaped portion, possibly 300 feet long, with an undercarriage. The carriage was made of panels of glass or transparent substance, alternating with a narrow strip of some other material. It was brightly lighted within, and every detail was clearly visible. There were 3 lights, one like an immense searchlight and 2 smaller ones, one red, the other green, and the large one was susceptible to being turned in every direction. And it was occupied by 6 of the strangest beings that I have ever saw. There were 2 men, a woman, and 3 children, and they were jabbering together, but we couldn't understand a syllable that they said. Every part of the vessel, which was not transparent, was of a dark reddish color. We stood mute in wonder and fright, and when some noise attracted their attention, and they all turned their light directly upon us, immediately upon catching sight of us, they turned on some unknown power, and a great turbine wheel about 30 feet in diameter, which was slowly revolving below the craft, began to buzz, sounding precisely like the cylinder of a separator, and the vessel rose as lightly as a bird. When about 30 feet above us, it seemed to pause and hover directly over a 3-year-old heifer, which was bawling and jumping apparently fast in the fence. Going to her, we found a cable about half an inch in thickness, made of the same red material, fastened in a slip knot around the neck, one end passing up to the vessel and tangled in the wire. We tried to get it off, but could not, so we cut the wire loose, and stood in amazement to see ship, cow, and all rise slowly and sail off, disappearing in the northwest. We went home, but I was so frightened I could not sleep, but arose early Tuesday morning, mounted my horse, and started out to find some trace of my cow. But coming back to Leroy in the evening, found that Lank Thomas, who lives in Coffee County and 3 or 4 miles west of Leroy, had found the hide, legs, and head in his field that very day. He, thinking someone had butchered a stolen beast, had thrown the hide away, but had brought it to town for identification, but was greatly mystified in not being able to find a track of any kind on the soft ground. And I went home last night, but every time I would drop off to sleep, I would see that cursed thing with its big lights and hideous people. I don't know whether they are devils or angels or what, but we all saw them, and my whole family saw the ship, and I don't want any more to do with them." End quote. Mr. Hamilton looked as if he had not entirely recovered from the shock, and everyone who knew him was convinced he was sincere in every single word. To add credence to Hamilton's testimony, the newspaper also printed the following affidavit signed by 11 men who knew Hamilton well and vouched for his truthfulness. The affidavit read, and I quote, as there are now always have been and always will be skeptics and unbelievers whenever the truth or anything bordering on the improbable is presented, and knowing that some ignorant or suspicious people will doubt the truthfulness of the above statement, now therefore we the undersigned do hereby make the following affidavit, that we have known Alex Hamilton from 15 to 30 years, and that for truth and veracity we have never heard his word questioned, and that we do verily believe his statement to be true and correct. Signed by E.V. Wharton, who was State Oil Inspector, H.H. Winter, Banker, H.S. Johnson, Pharmacist, Alex Stewart, Justice of the Peace, F.W. Butler, Druggist, H.C. Rollins, Postmaster, M.E. Hunt, Sheriff, E.K. Kellenberzer, M.D., J.H. Stitcher, Attorney, H. Weimeyer, Druggist, and James L. Martin, Register of Deeds, and it was sworn on the 21st day of April, 1897. Now, as may be imagined, much comment was forthcoming in various Kansas newspapers about this most mysterious event. What were the great airships? Most of them that were seen were cigar-shaped, and I believe the flap lasted a couple years. But what were they? We don't know any more about them than we know about the UFOs that we see today. Many people believe they're from extraterrestrial sources. Many people believe that they're demonic fallen angels, which I can understand. Part of the grand deception before the Lord Jesus returns to take us or leave us, depending on our state of salvation. But they may be something totally different too. Who knows? They've been with us since the beginning. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this little saunter back into 1897 to look at what was indeed a very curious UFO case involving those strange cigar-shaped airships. If you enjoyed this, please be sure to subscribe. Click the bell icon so you don't miss out on any more programs here from the Dennis Morrison channel. And thank you, and please keep watching and looking for me to return from the dimension of the weird.